You wake up when your body is ready, no alarm, no commute, no inbox waiting to punish you for sleeping in. For a moment it sounds like freedom. Then the sun climbs higher, your stomach starts to ache, and you realize something. Nobody is bringing you breakfast, there is no fridge. There is no store today, you eat only what you can find, catch, or dig out of the ground with your own two hands. And if you fail, you don't just go hungry, you fall behind. Because out here, hunger doesn't wait quietly, it compounds. For most of human history, this wasn't a hypothetical. This was Tuesday. Anthropologists estimate that for roughly between years, nearly every human who ever lived survived this way. Not with supermarkets. Not with agriculture, with knowledge, patience, and a body trained since childhood to read the land like a language. And here's the part that should humble you. Most of us dropped into that world today wouldn't last a week. Let's talk about why. Start with food, because food is the whole game. You might imagine hunter-gatherers spending every waking hour in a desperate scramble to survive. Within 1963, anthropologist Richard D. spent months living with and studying the Juche, a hunter-gatherer people in the Kalahari Desert of southern Africa. What he found broke the assumption completely. Adults worked, on average, somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week to meet their nutritional needs. Not 40, not 60, 15 to 20. The rest of the time was rest, storytelling, childcare, and social life. That number is so strange to modern ears that anthropologist James Sussman built an entire body of research trying to explain it. Sussman, who has spent decades studying the Juche, argues that hunter-gatherer societies weren't scraping by. They were, in his words, the original affluent society, not because they had much, but because they wanted little, and the environment, when you knew how to read it, usually provided. But don't mistake less work for easy, because the 20 hours that mattered required something you don't have. Expertise. A skilled forager doesn't wander randomly hoping to stumble on food. They track animal prints by depth and spacing to estimate the creature's size, speed, and how recently it passed. They know which roots are poisonous raw but safe once roasted, which plants only fruit for 2 weeks a year, and exactly which 2 weeks a year, and exactly which 2 weeks. Anthropologist Polly Y. Esner, who studied the Juche extensively, documented how deeply social this knowledge is. It isn't hoarded, it's shared constantly around the fire, passed down in stories that double as survival manuals. A child growing up in that world absorbs decades of ecological data before they're old enough to hunt alone. You dropped into the same landscape with none of that, you'd starve slowly, surrounded by food you couldn't recognize. So let's reconstruct a day and put you in it. Dawn breaks orange over dry grass. You didn't sleep in a bed. You slept on the ground near a small fire, waking twice in the night to feed it, because a fire that dies invites predators and cold in equal measure. Your first task isn't breakfast, it's water. You know a shallow well exists, but you have to remember exactly where, because there's no sign, no map, just a landmark tree that looks like every other tree to your untrained eye. By mid-morning, if you're with the group, someone spots tracks. The hunt begins, and it is not a sprint. It is a slow, relentless walk, sometimes lasting hours, following an animal until, exhausted by the desert heat, it can run no further. This method, called persistence hunting, relies on something remarkable about human bodies. We sweat, most four-legged predators don't, not efficiently. They overheat before we do. Your ancestors didn't out-muscle their prey. They out-endured it, using a biological advantage most of us never think about because we've never had to use it. Could you keep that pace for 4 hours in open heat tracking, reading terrain, staying alert for lions? Be honest. Meanwhile, back at camp, gathering is happening too, and it's not a side activity. Frank Marlowe, who studied the Hadza of Tanzania, found that in many hunter-gatherer societies, gathered plant foods provide the majority of daily calories, not meat. Roots, berries, nuts, tubers. Meat is prized, celebrated, shared with ceremony when a hunt succeeds. But the dependable calories, the ones that keep everyone alive on the days the hunt fails, come from people who know exactly where to dig. Here's the counterintuitive twist, the one that upends how we usually tell this story. We tend to picture the shift from foraging to farming as an upgrade, progress. But when researchers examine skeletal remains from early agricultural societies, a different picture emerges. Bones from early farmers frequently show more signs of malnutrition, more dental disease, and shorter average stature than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. Agriculture produced more food, but often worse and less varied food, tied to a handful of crops instead of hundreds of wild species. It also produced something new, surplus that could be stolen, land that could be owned, and hierarchy that hadn't existed the same way before. Some anthropologists have gone so far as to call the agricultural revolution humanity's biggest trap. More food, but for many people a harder, sicker life. That single fact should sit uncomfortably with you, because it means the primitive life you're imagining wasn't a lesser version of yours. In many measurable ways, for long stretches of history, it was healthier. Now think about what you actually have. You have refrigeration so food doesn't rot before you eat it. You have writing so knowledge doesn't die with the person who knew it. You have specialists, farmers, doctors, engineers. So you don't personally need to master tracking, plant toxicity, fire starting, tool making and hunting all at once, the way every capable adult in a foraging band once had to. And yet, put you back in that world, without your fridge, your specialists, your stored knowledge, and the 20-hour work week that sounds so appealing collapses instantly. Because those 20 hours were only possible because of decades of accumulated expertise you don't have and can't fake. Your ancestors weren't working less because life was simple. They were working less because they were extraordinarily, invisibly skilled. So the next time you feel exhausted by your job, your calendar, your endless list of modern obligations, remember this. Somewhere in your body is a nervous system, built for tracking animal prints in dust and reading storms in the color of the sky. You'll probably never use it, but it's there, quietly reminding you that the person you'd need to become to survive one single day as your ancestors did is someone you haven't met yet and might never need to. You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm, no schedule. Your ancestors had that too. The difference is they'd already earned it.